Welcome to Strip Cover Lit, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I'm Adrian Fort, and we're here for part 11 of a 15-part series as we journey room by room through The Shining by Stephen King. This episode is over chapters 38 through 42, which represent pages 454 through 503 in the standard print edition of the Stephen King semi-classic. So what happened in these chapters? Chapter 38, titled Florida. Dick Halloran is moseying about, minding his own business in Florida, doing the job that he has been hired to do while he is out there. He is interacting with old friends when, boom, he gets a stroke-level amount of communication from Danny. He gets out of work and almost catches a flight, but he is in the process of getting to the airport when he is pulled over for speeding, I believe. Chapter 39, titled On the Stairs. Wendy finds Danny playing. Maybe. She approaches him and notices that he's pretty badly beat up, and she blames Jack. Because, well, Danny says, no, it wasn't Daddy. He just had another episode. He tried to see Tony, and Tony refused to come see him. Danny reveals how dire the situation might be, and even says that, I don't think we're going to see much of dear old Dad tonight. Wendy decides, in the aftermath of this conversation, that it would be a good time to retrieve a knife, and then the two of them retreat to their bedroom. Chapter 40, The Basement. Jack is reading stuff in the basement, because that's what Jack has come to do, I suppose. And he almost kills everyone, because he's not taking care of the boiler. He decides at one point, maybe this is the right thing not to do. Maybe everything should go up in flames. After coming to his senses, he releases the pressure in the boiler, and he tears up his hands pretty badly in the process, because the boiler was so strained that every part of it was scalding hot. Thereafter, after almost killing everyone, mind you, he decides, job well done, it's been stressful here, I think I'll get a drink. We know where that's going to end up. We know where that's going to go. We have an introduction already to the idea of Jack and his Martians. Chapter 41, titled Daylight. It's a troubling chapter. Danny awakes in the middle of the night after having a dream that the Overlook Hotel has exploded and is still burning, while he and Wendy watch the flames from the front lawn. And Daddy Jack, emerges from those flames on fire. A young man having a dream about his father running around on fire. Pretty troubling, not the most troubling thing that happens in the chapter. Danny was relieved that this was just a dream, waking to find that this was just a dream. Not only that he did not call out in the night and wake his mother. He was a big boy through that nightmare. But he still feels something is amiss. So he creeps towards the door of their room. He opens it. He emerges from the room, and immediately he is confronted with a furry. A furry, that's right, a furry. One of those people. Yeah, Stephen King, King of Horror, Prince of Darkness, writing about furries in the hallways. Anyway, this does not turn out great for Danny, but he does make it back to the room. Chapter 42 is titled Mid-Air. Dick is on an airplane when he is struck once again by Danny's force projections. But he just missed a flight. He is in flight now, but he had just missed a flight. But really, a few hours of difference. Surely, that can't matter all that much. So what is there to talk about in these chapters? I would like to start with just a couple of points before we go a little bit into more of just discussion, I think. But on page 488, we get this. Jack is in the basement and he is remembering when his father had killed a wasp's nest and he and his brothers had watched. What he did is he piled some leaves underneath the nest and set them on fire and just smoked the little bastards. Then he knocked the nest down and crunched it up. And emerging from that nest were all sorts of wasps. And in his memory, Jack approached his father and said, as these wasps are just sort of stumbling about, "Why don't they try to sting you, Daddy?" he had asked. "The smoke makes 'em drunk, Jackie. Go get my gas can." He ran to fetch it. Daddy doused the nest with amber gasoline. "Now step away, Jackie, unless you want to lose your eyebrows." He stepped away. From somewhere in the voluminous folds of his white overblouse, Daddy had produced a wooden kitchen match. He lit it with his thumbnail and flung it onto the nest. There had been a white-orange explosion, almost soundless in its ferocity. Daddy had stepped away, cackling wildly. The wasp's nest had gone up in no time. "Fire," Daddy had said, turning to Jackie with a smile. "Fire will kill anything." There's a lot going on in that paragraph. Possibly not the least of which, but possibly the least of which, is the humor with which Jack's father kills. The humor Jack's father finds in destruction. This is going to lead into a later topic of conversation in this video, but it is something that we find popping up throughout this novel. This little section sort of makes me realize how much more of a generational novel this book is than I had ever read this book. I had never read this book with that lens of a generational novel. This is not about Jack Torrance and Wendy Torrance. This is about Jack Torrance's father. This is about Wendy's mother. This is about Danny. This is about Danny's future and what will come of him. This is about the Overlook Hotel as it stands. This is about the Overlook Hotel as it was built. This is a story about the Overlook Hotel and what will be happening in the future. After all, Jack is guaranteed to take care of it. So that humor with which Jack's father destroys, we see a little bit of that in the violence that happens in these pages as they take place in the present as well. The cartoonish nature of the violence of swinging a roque club to kill. The cartoonish nature of the boiler getting too hot and Jack putting his hands on it to twist it and relieve the pressure and his hands boiling up in the process. Sounds like something straight out of a Tom and Jerry cartoon, doesn't it? That type of dramatized violence that a character has brought on themselves on his or herself. Damn it. That is reminiscent of Jack's father in this paragraph. And I think that anyone who has encountered that type of violence, that type of abuse, that type of cajoling, that type of abuse where you're in a violent situation and someone says something, the aggressor says something just silly enough to dare you to laugh. Go ahead, I dare you. Do it. Do it. We'll see what happens. That sort of thing. And that seems to be the energy that we get often in these pages from the Overlook Hotel. That seems to be when Jack goes off on his rants, when Jack is really doing a number on something. He throws out ridiculous little phrases, which dare you to laugh. And there's something else daring us to laugh in this chapter that I'll get back to a little bit later. But also, in this small little excerpt here, the Wasps. The Wasps. Were those wasps always Jack Torrance? Think about the first time we were introduced to the idea of wasps. Sounds funnier every time I say it. He's on the roof. Or how Midwest should I be on the roof? He's on the roof, and he finds them. They pop up. They pop up as he is having problems with self-doubt. What am I doing? Am I leading my family in the right direction? Zzz, and he gets stung. The smoke makes him drunk. Are these wasps the ghosts of Jack's torturous relationship with alcohol? They sting you. They hurt Danny, didn't they? They hurt Danny when Jack was pretty damn positive everything was going to be fine because he was doing the right thing. He was perpetuating his childhood by giving Danny that wasp's nest. He was perpetuating his childhood with a drinking problem. He was trying to make right on his childhood. He was trying to make right on his history as an alcoholic when he gave up the booze and beat the hell out of a child and got fired. He was trying to do right by his family and publish get his play published, get his play right, when baby Danny spilled beer all over it and accidentally got his arm broken by Daddy. The smoke makes them drunk. And when they're drunk, they'll hurt you. Just the idea will hurt you. And by the way, fire will kill anything. All of those problems from the past, any problem that could come up in the future. Fire, the fury of fire, will kill anything that needs to be destroyed. Were these wasps always Jack and his drinking problem? Popping up. Popping up. The next page, the kissing page, page 489. A phrase which seems innocuous at first, and might be. Perhaps I'm reading too much into this. I've been accused of that on numerous occasions. But this small phrase, he's sitting here coming out of this dream, of this fantasy about his father and the run-in with the wasps as he was a child. And he relieves all the pressure, all the tension in the boiler. All that heat gone. All that furious heat dissipated. He comes to. And in the pregnant moments after this, those types of moments, those types of near-death moments, which are often pregnant with revelations about life, our narrator who is not necessarily particularly close in a psychic distance to our characters, but often it's right up in their heads, our narrator lets us know, and I quote, he had almost died. He had almost died. Awfully strange phrase for a man who almost got his family killed, isn't it? But, like we see at the end of this chapter, Jack's done a damn fine job. It's time for a little boozing. It's time for a little boozing, isn't it? He almost died, not his family. This is a very selfish statement. This is a very selfish statement from a man who was on a fairly selfish mission, as he was not currently writing a project about the Overlook Hotel that he was sure would gain his family millions of dollars and the fleeting dreams that all writers have from time to time. No, he was just reading papers. Got lost in the moment. Got lost in 12 hours of time overnight, and he almost died. Not that he almost killed his family. No, it's much more selfish than that. And he's done a good job, so it's time to get some liquor. But ultimately, these few chapters introduce us to what is probably my main criticism of the novel as a whole. Like I said, that humor that is planted squarely into the dangerous elements of these things, even so far as the hedge animals. They're just hedge animals. It's just a puppy, right? They're not, it's not a dragon. Lions are pretty scary, but often they are symbols of pride, they are symbols of strength, they are symbols of morality, they are symbols of royalty. Not something like a dragon, which is often used to symbolize the scary thing. That little bit of humor that was Danny emerging from his bedroom, trying to go get Jack, who was at the time seeking alcohol. That little moment where he emerges from the bedroom and he's confronted with a furry. Now, I know, it's weird. The only thing that would be more frightening to me at the end of a hallway than a furry would be a hipster. So when you're confronted with that, there's nowhere left to go. There's nowhere left to hide. You've got a confrontation. But it's with a furry. It's with a guy in a dog outfit. Which I understand can undercut the tension in a way that sticks with you, that will haunt you, that will be signature of this novel. But so much has gone into the buildup of this novel, and some really creepy things that go on, some really scary things that go on, that for our first actual apparition level ghost, spooky, to be a furry, it's a bit of a letdown. To me, maybe not for you, but we also have Stephen King's weird obsession with sexual things in really weird locations. For anyone who has read It, you know what I'm talking about in that novel. But in this novel, the woman in 217, her floating pubic hair. At one point there was a floating penis, but I don't remember where. It's a strange thing to say, true nonetheless. When he meets this furry, the furry promises to come get Danny's penis. There is the strange obsession with the phrase, when Jack is reading about the mobsters, they took his balls with them. Something like that. That might not be word for word, but that's what went on. And he's stuck on that phrase. Adrian Mellon in It, who was the first casualty of It as it reemerged in the 80s, I believe, I think was missing his penis. There's just weird things with it. Now, I understand that terms of sexuality are a way to undermine every bit of... They're a way to undermine every bit of the... Terms of sexuality are a way to undermine every bit of the civility that has been imposed upon each and every one of us by our daily entrance to society. Kind of proud of that one. Because it's there for all of us. Those things are there. They're omnipresent, regardless of the level of their presence. But we're not expected to talk about them. In fact, we're expected not to. So for those terms, those things to pop up, those visuals to be floated out there, see what I did there? For those visuals to be floated out there is to undermine all of that we put on a daily basis and make us vulnerable right out there. It's the same reason in horror films, regardless of what Freudian paper you read, whenever the pretty young blonde is running through the woods away from the serial killer, she doesn't have shoes on. Because at any moment she can step on an acorn, and all of a sudden she was killed by the acorn, not by Jason, right? It was the acorn that got her killed. I understand that... I mean, it's sneaky. I'll credit King for what it's worth crediting. It's a real easy way to get in there. And, hey, I've got to give the guy credit. I say I'm not a Stephen King fan. I've read quite a bit of Stephen King. Whenever I go back to reread a Stephen King novel, there are things that absolutely have stuck with me. There are things... Anyone who knows anything about It knows how it starts. Right? The movie, at least the Tim Curry version, I never saw the new one. The Tim Curry version is very accurate in the beginning to that book. Those visuals stay with everyone. Tim Curry ruined clowns for an entire generation. The Shining movie was not quite as... And, you know, that's what happens when you find a savant-level director to direct your book to movie adaptation, is you're going to do a lot of his own stuff. But it's not faithful. It's not accurate to the book. Still, there are moments that stick with you. Here's Johnny, right? Lives in infamy. The blood cascading down the hallway. You've seen it once, you'll always remember it. The girls standing at the end of the hallway as Danny turns the corner on his big wheel. I was born in 1985, so probably any inundation that I have to pop culture comes from 1990 onward. Those were images with which I absolutely grew up. I never saw the movie until I was in college. So Stephen King is extremely, extremely talented at providing memorable moments. But he sneaks those ones in there too. And I would be absolutely infatuated with anything you have to say on that topic, because I don't think I fully understand what's going on there. But they do stick out, so obviously I'm remembering them. But that is all I think that I have to discuss for this collection of chapters for The Shining, episode 11. I hope to see you back here next week for episode 12, which will be over chapters 43 through 46, pages 503 through 556.